Hey guys, welcome back to the Lifestyle School podcast. If you're new here, this is a space where we talk about health, metabolism, and weight loss in a way that actually honors your body, not trends, not extremes, and not the idea that suffering is somehow a prerequisite for results. I will be clear, change is hard, and we do talk a lot about that, but that's not the same as suffering, okay? And in today's episode, I think is especially important as we're in the midst of February, which just is a really hard month when it comes to change in the new year, because January, we feel hopeful. Motivation is high. We've told ourselves like this time it's going to be different. And now it might be February and the scale maybe hasn't moved the way that you expected. Maybe your energy isn't great. Maybe your consistency might be slipping. Hopefully not. Hopefully you have a really good plan and you're rocking it. But I will say for the majority of people, this is probably how they feel. And instead of thinking, maybe I need something more sustainable, which I would hope you would say, but I don't think that's what most people are saying to themselves at this point in their head. Usually what people are saying is maybe I need something more extreme. Okay. I need a hard reset. I need a stricter plan. I need a deadline, right? That focuses on compliance. And like clockwork, I see this. And this is where the idea of doing something like a bodybuilding competition often enters the chat. Okay. So today I want to talk honestly and compassionately about why personally and physiologically, why I think bodybuilding competitions don't fix issues with weight loss, and really why they so often backfire and how they reinforce an all or nothing mindset that keep us stuck in cycles of burnout, of regain, and self-blame. Okay. And to be clear, this is not shaming bodybuilding. It's a really intense sport. Um, I would never actually recommend it for anyone, but if you choose to do it, that's on you. But I think um what I want to focus on is the misusing of extremes, which I think bodybuilding can be a great example of, to try to solve long-standing metabolic and emotional struggles. Okay. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of today's episode, guys, as always, a quick disclaimer and reminder. I am not a medical doctor. This podcast is for educational purposes only, and it's not intended as medical advice, especially if you have underlying health concerns. Always, please make sure you consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet or lifestyle, okay? And then another quick reminder, if you haven't heard, my online supplement store is officially open. If you want some high quality supplements that you can actually trust, this is where to get them. Every product in my store is third-party tested for quality and purity, which is not, unfortunately, something that you're guaranteed when you're buying supplements off of places like Amazon, which I 10 out of 10 never recommend, or even grabbing them at your local health food store or grocery store. These are the same professional grade supplements that I use. I've been using them for essentially my entire life, and they're the ones I recommend to my clients. And it's an easy way to help support me and the Lifestyle School podcast. So if you're interested in checking out the store, head over to my website, www.hopecoaching.com. And in the top right corner, there's a tab that says store. Click on there. It's going to take you over to my website. If you want to put in an order, you will need a code to create the account. That code is 104567. And if maybe you're new to supplements and you've been thinking about incorporating them into your routine, but you're not sure where to start, go listen to episode 43, where I talk about vitamins and the core 4 supplement recommendations that I think most people will benefit from and why they matter for metabolic health. So with that, guys, let's get back into the episode. So I totally get why the idea is so tempting. When it comes to doing something more extreme to see the results that you want. Before we talk science, we need to talk psychology, right? When it comes to this, because the urge doesn't come out of nowhere. And I don't know, I'm not a guy, and I will say I do coach men But I would say I generally coach more women than men, which I think makes sense. But I would say, especially when it comes to women, I see this pattern a lot. Most women who consider something extreme are not lazy, they're tired. Okay. They've tried tracking, they've tried cutting carbs, they've tried cutting calories, they've quote eaten clean, and they've tried like the repetitive of starting over on Monday. And they don't trust their hunger anymore. They don't trust their body, and they definitely don't trust flexibility when it comes to their ability to get results, right? Like this is the mindset that most women find themselves in. So when a bodybuilding composition promises, very clear rules, exact macros that you're eating day in and day out, defined meals, like a really rigid training plan, and a very clear end date, it creates this like false uh, picture of safety, right? It feels safe. And it feels like finally handing the problem over to someone else and saying, just tell me what to do. And we like that, right? Because probably in other areas of our lives, we're probably dealing with decision fatigue, right? And overstimulation and having way too much on our plate. But underneath that is a belief that many women don't even realize that they're carrying. And that belief is that if I could just be disciplined enough, I wouldn't be in this body. Okay. Let me say that again for the ladies in the back. Underneath this, desire to do something really rigid and strict and extreme is this underlying belief that you're carrying that says, if I could just be disciplined enough, I wouldn't be in this body. And that belief is really heavy. And it sets women up to blame themselves for outcomes that are biologically inevitable. Okay. And I see this over and over and over and over and over again. I've been doing this for 10 years. I see it coming from a mile away. And honestly, the impetus for me doing this podcast episode, maybe it seems like out of left field because I don't talk about bodybuilding like ever. And I've actually never done a bodybuilding competition myself. I've done competitive weightlifting, but that's totally different. But I saw someone who wanted to lose weight. They're an influencer on social media. And this person decided to do a bodybuilding competition to like motivate themselves to work out and eat healthy and lose weight. And I was like, I'm going to tell you what this is going to look like. And then I've just watched it over the last couple of months happen exactly as I expected. They had a lot of success, got really lean for their competition. And then they were really focused on not, going wild after the show and binge eating and trying to naturally, kind of come out of the prep for their competition. And then I watched as she started to say, oh, trying this and that, and I'm still gaining weight and nothing's working. And now she's talking about doing peptides or GLP-1s because she couldn't get her body to do what she wanted. Her weight was rebounding after the show, as I knew would happen, in a way that she wasn't comfortable with. And now she's reverting to medication or peptides to control her weight. A tale as old as time, guys. So let's talk about what contest prep, when it comes to something extreme like bodybuilding, is actually meant for. And, while we're just specifically talking about bodybuilding, there are other things that you could maybe apply this template to that you could kind of see through this lens as well. Hopefully, as we talk about it. And again, I don't want to nitpick people who do bodybuilding. It's a very hard sport, but it is a sport and it's not necessarily great for us metabolically. And we're going to get into that today. So this is where I want to be very clear. Bodybuilding prep is not a health intervention. Okay. It's a cosmetic intervention. Okay. Cosmetic intervention. It exists to do literally one thing: reveal muscle on a specific day under specific lighting with a really intense tan and some oiled up muscles. Okay. It does not exist to heal insulin resistance, restore hormonal balance, to repair metabolic damage, to teach intuitive eating, or support mental health. That is not what bodybuilding is about. Maybe someone would try to peddle you that, but if they do, like, major red flag. And when women use contest prep as a weight loss solution, they're asking it to do a job it was never designed to do. Okay. And that mismatch is the root of the problem, truly. Okay, so because let's talk about something foundational that really gets discussed when talking about this, and it's energy availability. Okay, energy availability is the amount of energy left over after training to support basic physiological functions, things like hormone production, brain function, immune health, and reproduction. During contest prep, energy availability drops dramatically because while you're doing contest prep, your calories are low, you're doing extreme calorie restriction, your training demands are high, you are spending hours in the gym every week, and you're giving yourself like minimal recovery. Okay. And your body has to start making some decisions. And one of the first decisions it makes is, what systems can I afford to downregulate right now? And for women, that often includes things like reproductive hormones, thyroid output, bone turnover, mood regulation. And, if you feel those things, or if that happens to you, it's not any sort of like body failure. It's literally your body's survival mechanism. It's prioritization. And body fat and energy intake drop when you're doing this, right? And leptin drops with it. As your body fat and energy tank, leptin drops with it. And, hopefully you know now what leptin is. It's not just your hunger hormone, but it's a permission signal, okay? Low leptin tells the brain food is scarce, that the environment is unsafe, and now is not the time for reproduction. It's not the time for repair or the time for like abundance, right? So the brain responds by increasing hunger. You feel more hungry. It responds by lowering our metabolic rate, suppressing estrogen, and altering our thyroid conversion. And this is why women often lose their menstrual cycle during a contest prep. Not because they're, lean and fit, but because their body has pulled the energy brake. And estrogen suppression doesn't just affect fertility, it affects things like your mood, your sleep, your joint health, bone density, and insulin sensitivity. So while, the physique might start looking really good and really, quote, healthy for the stage, the internal environment often is not. In people that you see who are, super ripped and lean for a bodybuilding competition. And then when we layer cortisol on top of this, contest prep is very stressful. It's stressful physically, stressful mentally. It can be really stressful emotionally too. And many people stay in a state of elevated cortisol. And, hopefully by this time, what elevated cortisol does is it breaks down our muscle tissue, again, impairs our sleep. It worsens anxiety. It encourages fat regain once calories rise. This is a big one. And again, it interferes with thyroid signaling. And this is why so many women feel, maybe wired, tired, anxious, and emotionally fragile during and after like a contest prep. It's because your nervous system is on high alert for months at a time. Because usually a prep for a bodybuilding competition lasts, I believe, around 20 weeks. And this is where metabolic adaptation, which we've talked about within the last month or so regarding calorie restriction. But here's a critical point that doesn't get, I think, enough airtime is metabolic adaptation is not just a slowdown, it's a learning process. And the body becomes more efficient. It burns fewer calories for the same activity. Our NEAT activity drops. And our resting energy expenditure also drops. And when, the competition ends and we're no longer being extremely rigid with our food and doing a ton of exercise, a bunch of cardio, a bunch of weightlifting, our appetite rebounds faster than our metabolism recovers many times. So, we've cut calories really low. Sorry, I hit my microphone. This is what happens when you talk with your hands. We've really cut calories. We've kept our activity and the stress really high. We, hit this end mark, we get on the stage, we do our thing, the pressure is now off, and we have this crazy intense appetite rebound, and our metabolism is still like, what is going on? Because, we've been working to slow down and reserve and protect ourselves, right? So women are then left with this intense hunger, a metabolism that is still in conversion mode, and a body that's primed to store energy. It's just like, let me get calories and let me store them all as fat. And, I think this is, this is like the perfect setup for feeling like you're a complete failure after a show, because it's not a willpower problem. It's a physiology problem. And post-show weight regain feels really shocking because it happens really quickly. Some of it is glycogen restoration because, before the show, you're like peeling out glycogen, like you're depleting glycogen stores, you're trying to shed as much water. And then post-show, your glycogen tanks in your muscles and your liver are restored. Water retention is going to rebound back. Your inflammation shifts. But a meaningful portion is fat regain, unfortunately, because the body is trying to protect itself from future famine. And this is why it's not uncommon for women to be like, I gained 10 pounds in 2 weeks. Like that is a huge swing in weight, and you really feel a 10-pound weight gain. And I don't remember if I wrote down the stats, but I was looking at them. But the percentage of women who gain back at least 30 pounds after a show is, I believe, at about 80%. Don't quote me at that. I don't think I have it written down, but it's very, very common for women, especially, to see big rebound swings with their weight after a show. And instead of understanding, what's happening in their body, we panic, right? Because we're like, oh my gosh, 10 pounds in 2 weeks. In another 2 weeks, am I going to be another 10 pounds heavier? So we panic. And what this does is it fuels more restriction, like the binge restrict cycle. It fuels more rebounding with our exercise, with our eating. And all that does is it deepens the cycle that like got us here into the first place of that missed trust with ourselves and our ability to be disciplined. And there's a real mental cost to this that runs really deep. Contest prep doesn't just change the body. It can reshape our identity in some really sketchy ways. Okay. Because during a contest prep, or really any times you lose weight, women receive praise for their discipline, right? You receive validation for the suffering that you're going through, all those hours you're spending at the gym. You get compliments for shrinking, for becoming, more lean and toned, a smaller version of yourself. Food becomes moral sometimes, hunger becomes weakness, and rest can sometimes also become lazy, or rest can be like tied to feeling lazy is maybe a better way of saying that. And then, so when this prep ends, the entire structure disappears and there's no more rules, right? The praise is gone and the certainty is also gone. And that just leaves many women and men, I think, after prep feeling really lost. And that sets us up for identity whiplash and body distrust, which is very destructive because post-show, the body changes rapidly, right? And instead of thinking, oh, like my body is recovering, I think most people think I'm losing control, right? And we love to control things. If you're anything like me, you love control, and it feels like we're losing control. And, because of this identity whiplash, healthy body fat can feel unacceptable because you were just at this like insanely, somewhat unhealthy, unsustainable level of leanness that you're like, oh, I really like how this looks and feels. A healthy body fat can feel like skewed, right? It's almost like an eating disorder. Normal hunger can feel really dangerous because you're like, am I losing control? And, flexibility, the ability to be flexible can feel like total failure because you've been like a robot for the last 20 plus weeks, right? And this is where the all or nothing thinking really tightens its grip, I think, on people. And what this does is typically lead down the road to disordered eating. And it's not uncommon for this to start after a show because, you know, we feel out of control, really, at the end of the day is what it comes down to. And I think this can surprise people, but it's incredibly common. The most intense struggles, with, our body and everything usually comes after prep for a show. We see food obsession, binge restrict cycles, fear of carbs, anxiety around and eating without like a very specific plan. And, it's not because we are, somehow weak or, inherently flawed. It's because our nervous system and our hormones are recalibrating after this like really prolonged stressed process of going through prep. And so this all or nothing approach, I think it doesn't stay in fitness. It shows up as, I'm either perfect or I have failed. It can look like if I can't do it all, why even try? Or, I've ruined everything after a prep if it's not going the way that you think it should. And this mindset makes sustainable health almost impossible, right? And that's why I think I'm so opposed to doing these extreme things to try to recalibrate our lifestyle to be at a healthy weight that we can sustain long term, right? Because like the root of the problem when it comes to using bodybuilding competitions as a weight loss tool is that they fail because we've created hormonal suppression instead of repair, right? We've increased stress instead of resilience. We need more resilience, not more stress. We've reinforced control, like trying to white knuckle things instead of building trust in ourselves. And we've delivered, a temporary aesthetic at really truly a long-term cost metabolically. And I think it teaches us, especially as women, how to endure something, but not necessarily how to live, right? Like we can endure something for 20 weeks, but it's not teaching us how to live 1, 10, 20 years from now, right? In a way that's going to support our health and our weight in a really healthy, positive way. And so what women, I think, really actually need instead of something, extreme to get things under control or to get on the track they believe will help them be successful in this new year is like, we don't need harsher rules. What we need biological safety, because that's when we can really release weight. We need consistent nourishment. We need blood sugar stability. We need muscle muscle building without chronic stress. We need hormonal recovery. And we need a relationship with food that's rooted in trust and not fear. And knowing that like we can choose to eat foods that we enjoy and that we learn to love if we don't already love them, and that foods that love us back, right? And make us feel really good. And, we need structure that supports life, not that requires, a bunch of recovery afterwards, like in the situation of doing something like a bodybuilding prep. Okay, so to kind of bring this full circle, I think a better question for February to ask is, instead of asking like, what extreme thing could finally force change in my health and my life, ask, what would allow my body to relax enough to change? Okay, so instead of asking, what extreme thing could finally force me to change or force this change to happen, to lose weight, to do whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, ask, what would allow my body to relax enough to change? Because bodies don't release weight when they feel threatened. They release weight when they feel safe. So in closing, I want to encourage you, if you're feeling tempted by extremes right now, I want you to hear this clearly. Your body isn't failing you. You're not broken. You don't need to punish yourself into health, okay? You don't need a stage. You don't need a deadline fueled by fear, because you got to get up there in the smallest, tiny little bikini and a crazy tan. You don't need to white knuckle your way forward. What you need is an approach that works with your biology, okay? And that's what we're all about here on the Lifestyle School podcast. And that's what we focus on in my course, Lifestyle School for Weight Loss, as well as my one-on-one coaching program. So guys, if this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with someone maybe who knows feeling stuck, or someone who this could encourage. If you would be so kind to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, write a comment, or I'd just love to hear from you and how the podcast is encouraging you. And I want you to remember, sustainable change doesn't come from breaking yourself. It comes from learning how to support yourself consistently. Okay, so let's do that. Let's learn how to support ourselves consistently in a way that nurtures ourselves towards our best health and a healthy weight. So with that, guys, hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will see you next time on the Lifestyle School podcast.